It begins as a whisper, a subtle knowing, a quiet, insistent thought that something isn't quite as it seems. The world on the surface still spins the same. Days turn into nights, seasons cycle. The rhythm of life continues its relentless beat. But you no longer move with it in the same way. There's a new gravity, a new resistance. I remember when everything felt so certain, solid. The ground beneath my feet was firm, and the sky above was a known quantity. My path, my future, even my past, neatly compartmentalized, understood. Like a perfectly constructed building, every brick in its place. And then, the crack. Not a dramatic explosion, not a blinding flash of light, just a hairline fracture in the foundation of everything I believed to be true. A tiny, almost insignificant fissure through which a different kind of light began to filter. The light of awareness. It was unsettling. Like waking from a dream, only to find the waking world now feels like another dream. One I was previously too asleep to question. And in that moment, as awareness cracked the surface, I started to realize I had been a sleeper. We live in a world that insists on clarity, on seeing things sharply, precisely, distinctly. We are told, focus your vision, define your boundaries, know what is real. But what if clarity itself can become a prison? Because when you see something too clearly, when you define it so precisely, you risk forgetting everything else that lies in the borderlands. The murmurings, the shadows, the half-shapes that dance just beyond your gaze. Imagine you hold up a single candle in a pitch-black room. The light reveals a few objects, the table, the chair, perhaps a book. But the candle also casts darkness into sharper relief elsewhere. What wasn't illuminated becomes profoundly absent. The very act of seeing may blind you to more. We often mistake our perception for reality. We say, this is how things are unequivocally. But that statement is an illusion. Reality is rarely so obliging. To capture one side of the tapestry is to ignore its weave, its hidden threads, its textures that refuse naming. To see with wisdom is to hold two truths. One, to grasp what is, and two, to remain open to what is not yet seen. When we cling to one vision, we exclude alternatives. We erect walls around our idea of what is right, what is safe, what is true. And then we become surprised, wounded even, when life refuses to conform. So here is a quiet invitation. Let your seeing be porous. Let your mind remain flexible. Let the edges of your certainty fray. Because the greatest danger may lie not in what we fail to see, but in what we refuse to doubt. In the space between what is known and what is possible, there lives the seed of transformation. Don't let clarity cage you. Let it guide you and let mystery follow close behind. Because once that crack appears, once that first sliver of awareness breaks through, you can't unsee it. It's like a switch has been flipped, revealing a world beneath the world, a hidden layer, woven into the very fabric of our perceived reality. As awareness deepens, you start to see the architecture of illusion, the way people chase symbols instead of meaning, money instead of peace, recognition instead of love. You realize how much of life depends on pretending to be certain, pretending to be satisfied, pretending to be someone. For a while, it feels like liberation. The veil lifts and everything sharpens. The world that once looked solid begins to shimmer, a living field of energy, of thought, of dream. You see how the external world mirrors the internal one, how every conversation, every coincidence, every heartbreak is part of an intricate dance of consciousness reflecting itself. And yet, the more you see, the more you begin to lose. The comfort of ignorance, the warmth of belonging, the innocence of believing that the dream was real. You start noticing the masks everywhere, the perfectly curated smiles, the practiced nods, the confident strides that hide frantic uncertainty. The roles we play, the performances we give, not just for others, but for ourselves. The endless, restless chase for meaning in a world that suddenly feels hollowed out. At first, it's intoxicating, liberating, like stepping out of a fog you didn't even know you were in, into a crystal clear, albeit blinding light. Everything sharpens, the colors are more vibrant, the sounds more distinct. You feel like you've been granted access to a secret chamber of existence. But clarity, I soon learned, has teeth. It's not just illumination. It's an acid that strips away comfort. It peels back the layers of polite fictions, of comforting narratives, of the self-imposed blinders we've worn for so long. And with each layer gone, the uneasy truth settles in. You realize how much of life, your life, everyone's life, depends on pretending. Pretending to be certain, pretending to be fine, pretending that the world is exactly as it appears. Because if we all stop pretending, what then? In the beginning, there's an almost desperate urge to share it. This revelation, this astonishing, terrifying new perspective. You want to grasp someone's hand, shake them gently and say, "Look, can you see it? The world beneath the world." But language fails. How do you describe a color no one else can perceive? How do you articulate the sensation of seeing through a veil when no one else recognizes the veil exists? The words feel clumsy, inadequate, like trying to catch mist in a net. People try to be kind, of course. They smile politely, their eyes glazing over, before smoothly changing the subject to something tangible, something safe. The weather, the news, the latest distraction. Anything but the unsettling truth you're inadvertently shining on their carefully constructed realities. They don't understand. And perhaps they don't want to understand. To them, you've become strange, detached, too serious, maybe even a little lost in thoughts that make no sense to their grounded existence. The warmth of connection, which once felt so vital, now seems to dissipate the moment you try to express this new sight. And in those quiet, isolating moments, you begin to understand. To see too much, to perceive beyond the comfortable illusions of the sleepers, is to walk alone, a solitary path bathed in a light that, for all its beauty, also casts the longest shadows. You try to share what you've discovered. You speak of connection, of unity, of how everything is alive with meaning, but people look at you the way they look at someone who's drifted too far from shore. Their eyes glaze over, their smiles tighten, they change the subject, and slowly silence becomes your closest friend. Because how can you explain to someone that the very walls around them are breathing? That the line between self and world was never there to begin with? You start to realize to see differently is to stand apart. Not because you wish to, but because perception has carried you beyond the comfort of consensus. You walk through crowds and feel the hum of their dreams. You see the pain hidden behind laughter, the fear disguised as certainty, the love begging to be seen beneath every defense. You feel both infinite and invisible, awake, yet utterly alone. And here lies the true danger of seeing not that others won't understand you, but that you might begin to believe you are more awake than they are. The ego wears many masks, and spiritual superiority is its most seductive one. It whispers, "I see the truth." They do not. I have awakened. They still sleep. But the moment that thought arises, you fall back into illusion. It's easy when you've stepped onto this path to let the light go to your head, to let the clarity become a kind of intoxication. The silence of others, their continued movement in the slumber, can breed a quiet, toxic sense of superiority. The danger is in believing you are more awake than others, that the sleeper is somehow less than the seer. It's a seductive idea, a final intricate knot tied by the ego trying to reclaim its territory. But I learned quickly, judgment is just another dream, a subtler, more insidious illusion. To judge the sleeper for their sleep is to have missed the entire point of the waking. It's to trade one cage for a gilded one. When you truly see, you see not only the illusions they inhabit, but the profound necessity of those illusions. You see the pain, the fear, and the inherent fragility that their masks are desperately trying to protect. To truly see is to dissolve the eye that sees. The observer must step out of the spotlight. The moment the seer becomes a separate identity, the sight becomes skewed. It's not about having attained a higher position. It's about having lost the need for a position at all. Wisdom, then, is not in seeing more. It is in seeing through gently, and without the crushing weight of superiority. It's the quiet understanding that the one who sleeps, the one who judges, and the one who sees are all fundamentally a single current of consciousness navigating the same strange reality. This is the beginning of the journey. The rupture is complete. Now, we begin to explore what it means to be the seer and the sleeper. If you can navigate the arrogance, if you can resist the despair of isolation, a profound quiet descends. Eventually, the world softens again. You stop fighting the silence. You stop trying to push the light onto unwilling eyes. You stop trying to wake others, and you start simply loving them exactly as they are. The sleeper is no longer a rival or a mistake or a figure of pity. They become a mirror, a necessary part of the whole. You realize that their current slumber is its own kind of grace, its own lesson, and that your path is yours alone. You realize seeing isn't about escape, it's about connection. The clarity that once alienated you now becomes the foundation for genuine presence. When you see through the illusion of separation, what remains is the truth of unity. The deepest paradox of the seerist journey is this: to see clearly is not to see the flaws, It is to see the complete, luminous perfection of things as they are. It is to know that everything, even the illusion, is held by an unconditional love. And in that love, the loneliness dissolves. The rupture closes, leaving behind not a scar but a window. The journey of the seer and the sleeper has just begun. And so, the rupture closes, not because the truth has gone, but because the self that felt wounded by it has healed. You walk back into the crowd, back into the world of jobs and deadlines, laughter and heartache, but something fundamental has changed. Eventually, something softens. The fire of discovery cools into the warmth of understanding. You stop trying to wake others up. You stop trying to explain what cannot be said. Instead, you begin to simply be. You listen more. You observe without judging. You love without needing to change anyone. You realize that people aren't asleep, they're dreaming their necessary dreams. Dreams that shape, protect, and ultimately guide them toward awakening in their own time, in their own way. You start to see divinity in the ordinary, in laughter, in heartbreak, in the way light moves through a window at dawn. The world becomes less like a lesson to master and more like a lover to cherish. You stop seeking escape and start embracing presence, because to see clearly is not to rise above life, it is to sink fully into it. You still see the illusion, yes. You still perceive the roles, the fleeting anxieties, the beautiful, elaborate architecture of the dream. But now it's not a prison. It's luminous. It's seen for what it is, a divine playground, a necessary stage for consciousness to experience itself. The separation is gone. The seer no longer stands apart, pointing out the errors of the sleeper, because the awakened eye no longer divides the world into real and fake, into awake and asleep. It simply blesses it all. We find our peace not by escaping the ordinary, but by realizing the sacredness of the ordinary. The true journey ends where it began, right here, in this moment, with these people, in this beautiful, flawed, perfect world. Perhaps awakening was never about seeing more, but about seeing everything, with love. And maybe seeing was never meant to make you special. It was meant to make you whole. The awakened eye no longer divides the world, it blesses it. Because awakening was never about escaping the dream. It was about remembering that the dream itself is divine. So as you breathe, remember to smile. And as you walk, remember to gently keep seeing everything for what it is, judging nothing, loving all. Because perhaps the true price of seeing is to remember what you can no longer forget. If you made it this far, thank you for walking this journey with me. And if this resonated with you, remember to comment or share it with somebody that might need to hear this. Until next time, Universal Consciousness signing out.